Hallelujah. We are so thankful to be back again at this appointed time for another Shabbat and learn more from what the Besorah has for us. That is the Word. These awesome books that are in the Bible. It's a book. And it seems like that time is just flying by. I was talking to Michael the other day, and we were talking about how here it is, the middle of the so-called year, and what used to be 4 weeks in a month seems like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's how fast time is going by. And in that, as we have been learning, is that we need to recognize the time that we are in, because there's signs all around us of everything that's going on. We've been sharing for quite some time about the end and everything that's going to take place so that we can be prepared for what is coming. And as you see with all the rioting and everything that's going on in this world is in chaos. And the earth is in travail. And it's definitely having birthing pains. And as we see these days approach, and every day that we wake up is another day that we should be grateful and have gratitude that we even woke up, because we don't know when our last day is going to be. And I'm thankful that we have this day. We are not promised tomorrow. We don't know if tomorrow is going to come. We don't know if we're going to wake up. I was just reading a post that someone shared on Facebook of an accident that they had, that they almost died on an event that happened, or with an event that happened, and it was not their time. But through an accident, it makes them realize that they could have not been here. And how much of a wake-up call is that? I mean, every day we should have that kind of wake-up call. Even if you don't experience an accident or a tragedy or something, and you hear about somebody else's accident or tragedy. I mean, you hear people that are, at death's door. And we really need to examine what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what we're not doing. So, as I was meditating and studying, the Most High brought me in remembrance of Esther. And so the title today is going to be, Are You an Influencer or Destroyer? And you can be one or the other. But in this particular story, I'm going to speak about someone that was an influencer in Esther's life. Her Hebrew name is Ector. We always like to let people know about the original Hebrew language, because that was the original language when the Bible was written. And they changed the names and things like that. So we just try to say the names correctly, like they should be from the original language, because there's a lot of people here. This is a melting pot in America. you have multilingual people that live here in America that speak different languages, but it's not their home. It's not where they were originated from, right? So it's good for us to know the history and the background and who is the people talking about in the book. You can't say that you're this person if you weren't from Ethiopia. You can't say that you're this person if you're from Yisrael, Israel. You cannot say that you're an islander if you weren't originally, your ancestors weren't islanders. I'm definitely not an islander, okay? So, you have people that are talked specifically about in the scriptures where they discuss their heritage and they discuss the people that they are, because people were known by their behaviors, they were known by their actions, they were known by their bloodline. Okay? So that's what we want to break down and have people to understand, is they need to look at these things. You don't need to look at it as just a fable or a fiction book. It is real life events. These things actually happened with these people in this time on earth, because it was a long time ago, before I was even thought of. I'm talking like thousands and thousands of years ago. Okay? So, this is a prime example of someone in someone's life that was an influencer. Because you're going to be an influencer either of righteousness or you're going to be an influencer of unrighteousness. And so it's very important that we realize and understand that what we present and how we present it matters. It matters. And I hope that one day, if this world is still here, that you would be able to have someone write a book about you and about how you were an influencer over their life. Or you were a troublemaker. You destroyed somebody's life. Because that's what the enemy's out to do. He is out to kill, steal, and destroy. That's what Satan does. And he wants to deceive people and entrap them. And we don't want to be entrapped. So that's why we want to learn from history. His story. History. Okay? This is a story that was pinned down so many years ago that it was written down in a book and it was put in the Sefer. The Sefer is the Bible. It's many books. They say 66, but they took books out of the Bible. They stripped them out. The Romans stripped them out. And they did not want the people to know their heritage or their history. But we need to know this because it expounds on the 66 books. Okay? So let's go to the book of Esther, like I said. And we read from either the KJVA, which is the King James Version, which is the original book. If you have the A, is the Apocrypha, which will have some of the other books that were taken out, like I just talked about. But they have the Apocrypha, which is the Dead Sea Scrolls, that are in there. Okay? Like Jasher and books of that nature. So when you're reading, like we talked about last week, notice when it says, is it not written in the book of da-da-da-da-da-da-da? And then you look at your Bible and you're like, where's that book? Because see, I've thought those same things before when I would read. I'd be like, where's that book at? How am I going to find that book? Because I want to read about this. It says it's discussed in this book. Where's it at? Right? So you should question. So Esther chapter 1, verse 1 says, now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia. You see that? You see the region where it's at? Over 127 provinces. That would be this king had authority and made decisions for the people in the land in 127 provinces. That means he had high-ranking authority. He was very well known. Okay? You think about that. 127 provinces. That's a wide range of area to cover, to have to manage people. Would you want to manage people with 127 provinces? And you can't even take care of your own household?
Yeah.
How are you going to manage 127 provinces when a lot of people can't even manage their children at home?
Yep, I'm not.
They can't manage their spouse. They got an unruly spouse. Okay? You got employers. And you got employees.
I know.
Could you imagine? That's why a lot of people can't be in a leadership position, because they can't take authority and have the people to respect them when they give orders. Because you're always going to have a boss. You're always going to have someone that is in a supervisory position in your life as long as you live. I don't care who it is. Whether it's your bill collectors or whoever, your neighbors, whatever. Because you don't want to be known as somebody in the neighborhood that's what? A destroyer of the neighborhood. And people talk bad about your neighborhood because you got somebody that lives in your neighborhood that don't take care of their yard, and they got cars junked up in the yard, and their grass is 5 feet high, and it's just about broken down. That doesn't look good. Doesn't look like you care about what you got, does it? You wouldn't make that person a leader, would you? Because they can't even take care of their own household, right?
Right.
So the Bible says you train up a child where he should go. When he gets old, he won't depart from it. You got to train them up in the way that they should go. And reading this book explains how you're supposed to do it. So having authority is a big deal. You see that? That means you can handle stress. That means you can handle all kinds of situations, and you're supposed to help people resolve them. Right?
Right.
That in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace. He had a palace, okay? That would be like this corporation that we have right down the road. And I thought the very same thing when it was being built, and I went by it and I was like, wow. That looks like a palace. I wonder who's building that. Because it was humongous. So this king, Ahasuerus, he lived in a palace. And you see these palaces on television a lot of times where the queens and kings live still today. Those things are humongous, aren't they? You would get lost in that house. I personally would not want to clean that house, I can tell you that.
I want to clean it.
I would not want to clean this house because I'm telling you, it's huge.
I would want to.
You would? Well, you would be a good guy for doing that, let me just tell you.
Cleaning.
Let me just tell you.
Will I get thousands of dollars?
Yeah, you'd have to clean something like that.
Yeah, I get thousands.
So in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all princesses and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him. So he's going to have a party, and they are going to do some major eating. They're fixing to have a feast, and he's calling them all to come together to his party, right? And when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. Do you know that's 180 days? A score is 20 years. So this was 180 days. So that would be over half of a year that they were having this shindig. Can you believe that?
Oh.
And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. So to begin with, he had this feast with the leaders, right? And all of the heads of these provinces for the 180 days. And then after that, he's going to have another feast, let's say, for the blue-collar workers, okay? And the ones that are rich. So he not only did people that were all financial statuses that he was giving this feast for. And in verse 6 he says, where were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen and purple, to silver rings and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. This sounds like this is a curtain. You see how delicately it is put together with fine linen, and it has silver rings, and it's got pillars of marble. Could you imagine how exquisite that was and how beautiful? That sounds like a castle, doesn't it? Look at that. And it's got pavement. The pavement was red and blue and white and black marble. Could you imagine how beautiful that was? Man, I would be in awe. And how they made it. Back then, they didn't have the tools that they do today. Could you imagine how they created that? And how they built it? That is amazing to me. I mean, I don't even know how they would even figure out how to put all those colors together. And then, not only that, to hang it. That had to be humongous. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one for another. That means they were different patterns, so that somebody wouldn't be grabbing somebody else's drink and drinking out of it, right? So they had many vessels of gold. They weren't made of ceramic or aluminum or this stuff that you can get today made in China, some sort of plastic, right? This was top notch. These were made in gold, okay? And it was the royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. So the king made the decisions on how much they could drink. You know, we can go in there and we can go to the faucet and we can drink as much water as we want, or get whatever we want out of the refrigerator until it's gone or whatever. But this king was having this banquet and he had this wine, and he would be the one that would make the decision of how much they could drink. But in verse 8, and the drinking was according to the law, and none did compel. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. That means they could drink as much as they wanted to drink. If they wanted to drink a gallon, they could drink a gallon. There was no limit whatsoever. The king gave them full access to the wine cabinet. They could have whatever they wanted. So you can imagine, they probably got inebriated, I'm pretty sure, you know, and they were doing this feast, and he just got through doing one for 180 days. Wow. I'm surprised he'd even want to have another one. Oh my goodness. Look at that. And also Vashti, the queen. Okay, the king always has a queen, right?
Yeah.
Made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. So see, the women had a house and the men had a house. They didn't live together. They had their separate houses that they lived in. You see that? So Vashti decides that since the king's having a party, she's going to have a party with her women. So that's what she's doing. And on the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, okay, that means he's feeling pretty good. Merry means he's happy. He's not feeling no pain.
No.
He's probably, inebriated. But for 7 days, that's a long time to be drinking wine. And he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. So here it is that he's given his servants, these would be his servants. He had seven servants that would do whatever he asked them to do, his bidding. They were at his beck and call. And he would give them commands, and they were to go and do their jobs. And they were supposed to bring his wife, the queen, to him because she was a trophy wife. Okay? Because here it's talking about not only did they want them to go get her, they also wanted her to come with her crown on her head. Because he wanted to show her off. She was the trophy wife. Okay? And she was beautiful. She wasn't ugly to look at. So he's proud that he's got a beautiful woman. And he was wanting to bring her in and parade her in front of everybody. Because she was so pretty. But the queen, Vashti, refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Oh my goodness, you don't tell the king that you ain't coming. You don't disobey the king. Because when the king asks you to do something, if you don't do it, he has the authority to hang you. He has the authority to take your life. So when the king requested for her to come, and she doesn't come, we don't know what was going on in Vashti's life at that time. Maybe she didn't want to be a trophy wife anymore. Maybe she was inebriated too, and she was going to be rebellious. We don't know what Vashti's position was, but all we know is she disobeyed. She disrespected her husband, and she did not come in to his presence when he asked her to come. That was the wrong thing. Okay? So now, what is she? She's not being an influencer, is she? Not a good influencer. Okay? So she is destroying her reputation by being disobedient. You see that? So now the king, he's not happy. In verse 12 it says, but the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. He's very upset because she didn't come and do what he asked. She just asked him to come in with a crown on her head. That's all she had to do. And the king said to the wise men, which knew the times. See, we're talking about the times, right? For so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Carshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. They saw his countenance. Can I tell you that when you're angry or you're mad, You can't hide it. Your face is going to show it. Your eyes are going to show it. They recognized he was not a happy camper.
What's a camper?
It's just a figure of speech. He was not a happy king. He was angry because his wife did not do what he asked her to do. You're going to hurt your back like that. Sit up, honey. And in verse 15, he says, "What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law? Because she hath not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlain." She was disobedient and she was rebellious. Now they're coming together and they're going to figure out what disciplinary actions need to be taken place against the queen. Because the king, he didn't show favoritism because it was his wife. He had to keep order in the palace. And what he did and how he handled things, people were watching. And they were seeing how he was going to respond, right? And Memucan answered before the king and the princess, "Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus." Why? Because then people are going to start talking. These chamberlains, they're going to be going around and saying, the king called the wife to come in and she didn't do as he requested. There is upheaval in the palace. Right? "For this deed of the queen shall be abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes when it shall be reported." See, it's going to go out in the news. Word of mouth is the best way of advertising, right? Isn't that what they're saying? "The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not." See, it's going to be resounded in the city. Her behavior, how she responded, her disobedience and rebellion to the king and her husband. And by her doing that, that's not a good example. And it's going to be reported. And it says, "Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princesses, which have heard of the deed of the queen, thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath." See there? It's going to cause trouble. It's going to cause discord in the households with the women. Because then they're going to say, well, if the queen did it, we can do it. Because they're looking at her as an example. She's supposed to lead by example. She's supposed to be a woman of royalty. She's supposed to be a woman of righteousness. She's supposed to be a woman of dignity. And all of that. And if she responds like that, and the king doesn't do anything about it, they're going to take advantage of that opportunity. Where they can do the same thing, and that's not right. Vashti is not being an influencer. And in verse 19, "If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the law of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she." This is going to be her consequence of her rebellion. She's going to lose her queenship. She's going to lose her royal estate. She's going to lose everything that she has. Look at this. "And when the king's decree, which he shall make, be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give their husbands honor, both to great and small." You see that? He had to correct this. Even though it was his wife, he had to correct it. He had to make sure that this was not going to go by the wayside and it wasn't going to be swept in the closet. Because a lot of people do that. They have issues at home, whether it's a palace or whether it's a peasant. Where they have issues in the home, there's strife in the house, and other people have witnessed it. It's not being taken care of. It's not being corrected. There's no punishment. And everything goes back to so-called normal and living a functional life with no consequences. But she had a consequence here. She was going to have some loss because she disrespected and she disobeyed. Spouses, both spouses, need to honor and respect each other. They need to show it publicly and they need to show it privately. It's not right at all. When all he did was ask a simple request for her to come in to that banquet with her apparel on and her crown and present herself as royalty, and she declined. So there's no excuse for rebellion, you know. So here we go, verse 21. And the saying pleased the king and the princesses, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, and to every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. Now, let me emphasize that when it talks about that man bearing rule, that man needs to bear righteous rule. Not a heavy hand and not being an authoritarian, like a taskmaster, like beating somebody over the head. Crystal, will you bring me that cord, please, for my laptop? It's about to go out. So, in saying that, he had to represent himself as a righteous leader, as a righteous husband, and doing it the right way. There is a standard that we are to conduct ourselves by, and as long as that head of that household is doing that according to the word and according to the standard that we are to go by, then that wife is not going to have any problem. It's plugged in behind the desk. That wife is not going to have any problem doing anything that a husband would ask her to do, because she would respect him and she would honor him. And that's the way it needs to be with every household, with every marriage, because it is a covenant. And you are to respect that. Because if you don't, you're going to be accountable, because there are guidelines for a husband and there are guidelines for a wife. There are character traits that each one is supposed to have and present themselves in that manner. And when you love each other, you keep each other accountable. You keep each other accountable. If I'm doing something in error, my husband needs to take me to the side privately and let me know. If I see him in error, I can take him to the side privately and I can let him know. That's out of respect. Because you love somebody and you respect them and you honor them, you want to make sure that they are in right standing in what and how they present themselves. Because other people are affected. Because you see what they said? They said, if we don't do anything about this, all these women in these provinces are going to think that they can do the same thing. And it's not right. You got to have a standard of character. And when you get out of character, it's going to be somebody's watching. Somebody's there listening. And they're going to see it. And this is what they were saying. Those chamberlains were saying, No, we can't let this happen because all these other women in these provinces, they going to see what the queen did. And they going to think they have the authority to do the same thing. And it's not going to do anything but cause havoc. There's going to be havoc in the house. And we don't want that. Right? We don't want that. So, these letters were sent to every language. See, this was a melting pot too. You see that? Every language. They wrote the letters in every language to every province, all 127 provinces. He says, I'm fixing to take care of this. I am taking care of this matter right now. And that was by one choice that this queen made. Can you imagine how many times he would have to correct things? And he had leaders that would give him advice. Because they saw what would happen. In chapter 2, verse 1. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king. Boy, that's another biggie. How many virgins were there back then?
A lot more than there is now.
Right? Not many virgins. Look at that. So that's a whole nother big ordeal. They had to be honorable. They had to be honorable. He was not going to go and take a hooker off the street. The king wasn't going to go get a hooker. He wasn't going to go get someone that wasn't trustworthy. He wanted a virgin. He wanted somebody pure. Pure and untainted, undefiled. That's what he wanted. So he says, and they've got to be young. He's like, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king. And let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins. There wasn't no ugly ones coming. They had to be young. They had a criteria they had to meet. They had to be young. They had to be virgins.
Who was the judges?
And they had to be beautiful to look upon. Unto the Shushan the palace, to the house of women, unto the custody of Hegi, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them. So see, they had to come. This was the head person here was Hegi, Hege. That was the king's chamberlain, one of the king's chamberlain. That was over the house of women. That would be like the mom of the house, right? Or the dad of the house, or whatever. I don't know. This Hege was a male or a female. So I don't know. Yeah, I didn't want to say that.
It's the house mom.
Yeah. And let the maiden which pleased the king be queen instead of Vashti. Okay, she's going to be replaced. She's going to be replaced because she was a rebellious wife. She was not obedient. She showed out is what she did. And now everybody knows about it. And she's losing her spot in the kingdom. No more royalness for you, girl. You just lost it all. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan, the palace, there was a certain Jew. Jew means Hebrew, okay? whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. So he's from the tribe of Judah. He's from the tribe of Judah. Do you see that? He's a Hebrew. That's what Jew means, is Hebrew. Okay? Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity, which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Yehudah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, her Hebrew name is Ecter, E-C-T-E-R, his uncle's daughter. For she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So she was special to him. She was like his little girl because her parents died. So she was, like a foster kid now. And he was fostering her. And he took her underneath his wing. And he's raising her. And he's teaching her. And he loved her so much. And he's right there in the king's palace. So now, when he heard this decree that the king had made to call all the virgins, he thought about her. And so in verse 8, so it came to pass when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Hegi, however you say that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. So look at there. Mordecai's like, okay, sweetheart, come on. I want you to come before the king. So she trusted Mordecai. She trusted her uncle that he would guide her in the right way. And so she went. She didn't rebel. She didn't say, no, I'm not going. She's probably, when it says a young maiden, I'm sure she probably was maybe a teenager. Because back then they would marry young. They would marry really young. And it said they had to be young women. So it's telling me that she probably was a teenager. She might have been 18. I don't know. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him. So it is a man that is over the house of the women. You see that? And he speedily gave her things for purification. See, she had to know how to present herself before she went before the king. She had to be purified. I mean, from her outside in.
7 maidens.
Okay? With such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids unto the best palace of the house of women. So she had favor. She had servants. She had other women that were going to help her to teach her how she needs to present herself and take care of her skin and to take care of her nails and to take care of her hair and to have an aroma about her when she walked into a room that she would be a sweet savor. And I can imagine that it was a lot of oils that was put on her body, because back then they didn't have body lotions. They used oils. Okay? So here it is. She's in the best place of the palace. She's been given so much favor, okay? Because of just her beauty. She's already beautiful. But she's going to have more things that are going to be enhanced in her through this purification process. And Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. So she was being discreet about coming there. She didn't let them know that she was from the tribe of Judah, okay? Because if her uncle was a Benjamite, he was a Hebrew, then her daddy was too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because she lost her mama and her daddy. So, in verse 11, and Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her. So he was the watchman on the wall. He was the spy. He was right there at the king's gate. He was under her eye. She was under his eye. And he was going to watch every move that she was going to make sure that she was going to be kept safe and that no harm was going to come near her, that she was going to be protected. He was going to lead her. He was going to counsel her. He was going to guide her. He was the daddy. He was going to make sure his little girl was okay. No matter what age she was still his little girl. And now when every maid's turn was come to go into King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of women, for so were the days of their purifications accomplished, to wit 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with the other things for the purifying of the women. So see there, for 6 months she was anointed with myrrh, and for 6 months she was anointed with sweet odors on her body. They were seeping into her pores and to her every fiber of her being, and she was being pampered. She was being pampered. She was going to a spa for a year before she would be able to present herself to the king as pure and holy. Oh my goodness, how amazing is that? Could you imagine being in the spa every day for a year? She was pampered. Oh my goodness. And all of those women were. But she had favor. She was in the best part of the palace. She had the best leader over her. And as far as the captain of the women of the house. And then thus came every maiden unto the king. All right, it's time to present yourself. They got to go before the king. And whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of women and to the king's house. And in the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaashgaz, the king's chamberlain,
That's the one.
which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. So it would be like being in a beauty pageant and you got runners up. They all go in there and then they pick the top 10 or whatever. And then they go down and pick the top 5 or whatever. This is what they were doing with these young maidens when they come before the king. He was going to pick the one that he desired. Okay? So, nobody could say anything until the king made his choice. And so Esther, verse 16, was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. You see that? When you read that in the 10th month, people are going to think that's October. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But it would be August. Because October, octagon, is 8. Right? So they've changed the months and everything when you think about this and you read these things in the book, right? But the king already is showing favor to Esther. It says, he loved her above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head.
Wow.
And made her queen instead of Vashti. Here she was, a foster kid. She was a foster kid. Her parents had died. She probably felt like that her life had ended. But she had an uncle that took her in. I don't know how old she was whenever her parents died. But she had a family member that cared about her.
And he was a godly man.
And he was a Hebrew. He was from the tribe of Judah. And he wanted to watch after her and make sure that she was safe and protected. She was a virgin. She had character about her. He noticed it about her. And he thought about her, and he's like, you know what? You need to go and try for this. You might win this beauty pageant, honey. Because that's what it basically was. The king looked at the outside. He didn't know anything about her character. She walked in there with a presence. She walked in there with an odor. She walked in there with a walk that was a walk of, I know who I am. And she had self-esteem. She regarded herself as royal because she was going before the king. She knew that she had to have everything in place. And so she won that beauty pageant. She won it. And then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai. Like as when she was brought up with him. And in those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, 2 of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen, and Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree. And it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king. You see that? There's another book right there. It was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king. Where is the book of the Chronicles?
Mine says it was written in the Sefer.
Yeah, that's a book.
Chronicles before the king.
Yes, Sefer means book.
Okay.
Yes.
Mine just worded it different.
Yes, that's correct. That's exactly right. So see, there's another book. Where's the book at of the Chronicles of the King?
Come on now.
So see, you need to look at this stuff when you're reading it. Ask questions. Where's this book at? I want to read this book because it's telling me that this incident with these 2 guys wanting to kill the king is written in this book. It's not only in the book of Esther, it's in this book too. Right? And after these things, chapter 3, did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advance him, and set his seat above all the princesses that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman.
Bad move.
For the king had so commanded concerning him, but Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Because he was not going to honor anybody like that. He was not going to bow, because he was not appointed for him to do that. Because he knows he wasn't supposed to bow but to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, right? Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman, to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand. For he had told them that he was a Hebrew. I said Jew was Hebrew. He told them that that was his custom, that he was not, that was against his law, that he was not going to do that, right? He stood and held fast to his beliefs as a Hebrew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews, Hebrews, that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. And see, this was one of the reasons why he told Esther not to show that she was a Hebrew. Not yet. It wasn't time. Timing is everything. She listened to her uncle, because when we read on, you're going to find out why. And in the first month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month to the 12th month. That is the month of Adar. So see, it's not January. Okay? The 12th month is not December. These are Hebrew months. All these months that they have, January, February through December, they worship pagan gods. The first month is the month of Nisan. The 12th month is the month of Adar. And it told you the other month was the 7th month.
13 months with 28 days.
Look at that. You see that? They twist everything to confuse you. They change things. The Bible tells you about it.
Not to confuse you, to get you out of line with the holy days.
Yes, exactly. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom. And who do you think those people are? The Hebrews that were sold into slavery. They were dispersed everywhere, right? Because of what? Rebellion. But he loved them. He made covenants with them. He made promises with those that are righteous. Because there are Hebrew Gentiles. Ones that aren't saved. Ones that are rebellious still. But the righteous ones, he made covenants with them. And those were his chosen people. But look at here. He says, And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom. And their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. He's like, you don't need to deal with these people. They don't want to obey your laws. Their laws are not your laws. They have a different standard of laws. And he's wanting to prove to the king that they need to be annihilated and they need to be done away with. You don't need to suffer with these people. Don't deal with these people. And he says, if it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it in into the king's treasury. So now he's going to pay them off. Okay? This is the first bounty that's on their heads. He's going to pay the people to destroy the Hebrews, and he's going to give them 10,000 talents of silver. What that equates in money today, I have no idea. Somebody can Google it and look it up and see if you can help me out there. But I got to tell you, it's 10,000 talents of silver.
10,000?
Yeah. So this is a bounty. They got a bounty on their head now. They're going to be out to annihilate them. He wanted to destroy the Hebrews. He wanted to destroy that certain people, that nation from the 12 tribes. Do you see that? It specifically tells you that they were scattered in the 127 provinces, in every one of them. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Do you see that? This was the first notary. That today we have to go to a court and we have to have something sealed with someone that is a certified notary. This king's ring was his notary seal. And when it was stamped, there was nothing that could reverse it. So old nasty Haman, the destroyer, is coming to the king and saying, this is what I need you to do, because he hates Mordecai. Mordecai ain't done nothing to him. Mordecai just got some righteous standards and laws that he goes by, and he's not going to bow down to anybody against those laws because he's a law keeper. And Haman ain't happy about it because he wants to be given the honor. He's the one that wants to be put on a stage, right? But let me tell you something. Mordecai was an influencer. Mordecai was the best influencer because he did stand his ground. And in verse 12, then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. See, because the Hebrews' language was different than the language of Nebuchadnezzar. And in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post. Okay, use your postal service. Into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, which are Hebrews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, to take the spoil of them for a prey. They wanted to annihilate every single family member, from babies to children to adults. They wanted them annihilated. They wanted to annihilate that bloodline. And it's still happening today. People are still wanting to annihilate that bloodline. It is a royal bloodline.
10,000 talents of silver
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You
could
ready
be
for these
worth
numbers?
hundreds of millions of dollars,
That's 375 tons of silver.
potentially exceeding $2 million.
Look at that.
That is
$200 million.
226,291,702.50.
Wow.
It could be over $200 million.
Wow.
That's 375 tons of silver.
So Haman,
Where do they even get all that?
Haman must have had, because Haman said he was going to pay it. Isn't that what he said? So Haman was wealthy too.
Where do they get all that silver? Well, I don't know.
They get it from when they go into battle, and they get it from the enemy's camp.
Tons.
That was a lot. So that's how important it was to him to get rid of this bloodline, because he knew how powerful they were and what kind of authority they had. And he wanted to take them out. Look at that. So in verse 14,
Well,
huh?
a semi-truck.
A semi-truck of silver?
No, I'm saying
Oh, yeah.
to compare it to.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but this is just a semi-truck with an empty trailer, weighs up to 35,000 pounds.
Wow.
That's just pounds.
Wow.
Okay.
And how much was that silver?
How many pounds are in a ton? 2,000 pounds.
Wow.
Okay.
And how much silver did that weigh?
Okay, so that's 2,000 pounds. That's a ton.
Yep.
Okay, so a semi-truck with empty trailer weighs 35,000. So that's what, 15? And then 375 tons of silver.
That's crazy to even think about. It's crazy to think about where they stored all that at.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Where'd they even get it?
Well, yeah, where'd they store it all at? That's crazy.
Because back then they were talking about mining gold.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's where a lot of it was over there in those.
And how did they even know that that's worth something? You know what I mean?
Because
and
the
how
king
much
had
it's
it.
worth.
All the king's cups were made of gold.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, what told them, like, this is worth money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The earth's commodities.
Right.
You get it from the earth. You don't have to do nothing. I mean, you can, do stuff to make it with, but it's just there. Like, you don't have to, it's like plants.
Yep.
Well, you actually got to put a seed in it to
Right.
make it grow, but that is just in the earth, period.
Yeah, but see, that tells you how far people will go. It shows you what kind of distance the enemy will go to take you out. And the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink. But the city Shushan was perplexed. They were upset because, remember, that was a melting pot. And that the Hebrews were scattered in all 127 provinces. So this letter had to go out in every language in every province. So there was an upheaval. There was a disturbance. Their kids and their children were going to be killed. They were going to be killed. This was a serious matter. And it's still a serious matter today. Can I tell you these things are still happening today? There ain't nothing new under the sun. It is still happening today. People get paid off for killing somebody. That's called a hit. They got a hit on somebody's life. That's what this was. It was a hit on that bloodline.
Mordecai.
And when Mordecai perceived, chapter 4, verse 1, all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes and went out in the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate. For none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews / Hebrews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it to her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it is and why it was, because she was concerned. Why isn't my daddy coming and taking these clothes, and why is he bitter? Why is he upset? Why is he crying? I'm concerned about my daddy. He's not leaving the king's gate. Something is wrong. She was worried about her daddy. Remember, she's the foster child, and this man has taken care of her and raised her, and here she is the queen, and he can't even enter into the king's gate to make a plea, so he's out there just crying and fasting and praying. So she sent one of her handmaidens to go check it out. So Hatak went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews / Hebrews to destroy them. So he was going to give the money, the ransom. It was a ransom. He was going to give the ransom to the king's treasury, to the people that would destroy the Hebrews. Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and declare it unto her, to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make a request before him for her people. And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. And Esther spake unto Hatak, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come into the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king should hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Hebrews. He's saying, sweetheart, just because you think you're the queen, you're from that bloodline. Do you think you won't be annihilated too? He's saying, don't get it mixed up. That's what he's telling her. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Hebrews from another place. But thou art thy father's house shall be destroyed, and who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such as a time as this? How do you know this ain't the reason why you were elected queen in this beauty pageant, and now you're the queen, and you're from the tribe of Benjamin, you're from the tribe of Judah, and here you have authority to come before the king and I don't? How do you know this ain't the time for you to shine? Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Hebrews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. No food, no water, for 3 days. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. And I'm going to end right there. So what does she do? She sacrifices. She sacrifices, and her 7 maidens that she has, she may have more now since she's a queen, but she says, all of us, we are going to fast too, because my life could be taken. I could die if I go before the king and I'm not requested to come before him. This is a life or death situation, not just for me, but it's for my whole nation. It's for my brothers and my sister. It's for my daddy. It's for my aunts and uncles. It's for the people. It's for the children. She says, I've got to do this, and I want you guys to join with me and do this too. And so we're going to learn next week and continue. Are you an influencer? Or are you a destroyer? Are you an influencer or a destroyer?
Influencer.
You're an influencer, that's right. And that's what we want to do, is we want to be influencers. Esther is an influencer, a righteous influencer. Mordecai is a righteous influencer. Vashti was not. She lost her royalty because she was disobedient. And disobedience will cause you loss. You'll have a lot of loss in your life with disobedience and rebellion. So you need to make sure that when you're given an assignment, that you endure until the end in that assignment. And if there's anyone that is listening underneath the sound of my voice and this message has reached your heart today, and you've been a Vashti, and you've been disobedient, and you've been rebellious, and you've been presenting yourself as such, and other people are watching you and hear about you in the street. Back then they had to get on a horse or a camel or whatever and a chariot and take the news. Now all they got to do is get on Facebook. All they got to do is get on Facebook and TikTok and everywhere else, because people put their stuff out in the street and they still can see you even if you're not on those social media sites, because they'll see you in action. And the Most High sees everything. He never sleeps or slumbers. So this is a time that you can repent and you can ask for forgiveness of those things. Name them. Call them out. I've been stealing. I've been lying. I've been rebellious. I've been stubborn. I've been hard-headed. I've been a bad influencer. I've not been abiding by the laws that I should abide by. And repent and ask forgiveness and go to the ones that you've wronged and apologize to them and make it right. And then you'll be able to access into the King's gate. You can enter into the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And he'll say one day, enter in, thy good and faithful servant. So it's really simple. That's all you got to do is just say, Yahweh, I confess that I have done these things that was just spoken of. And I ask forgiveness for all of them, even the ones that weren't mentioned, my secret sins. Okay? And I ask you to forgive me. I'm ashamed of what I've done. And I ask that you would give me the opportunity to go to the people that I have wronged and make it right. And anything that I owe them, I pay them back. And I'm sincere about it, and I'm going to turn from it. And you're going to help me understand the word when I read it. And I'll be able to live it out. That you'll give me the strength and the power to live it out by example, by my behaviors, by my speech, by my attitude. And I'm going to be able to be that good influencer. And I'll be a witness in my community and in my household and in my workplace. And if you've said that, then you're forgiven. And we celebrate with you. And if you need someone to counsel you, you're more than welcome to contact us through social media. And also call us at 229-498-8044. And we will be more than glad to talk with you. And we pray that you share this message with someone else. And we'll see you at the appointed time. And the vision at Seed Time and Harvest International Ministry Incorporated is to plant seeds into the heart of every male and female, that seed may germinate and produce an abundant harvest. For the laborers are few, and the fields are white unto the harvest. Let's pray the Lord of the harvest to bring in the laborers for the kingdom. And that would be you, every man, woman, boy, and girl. We need you all to come together with us so we can share this word so that we can save the nation. Because we are to be used as deliverers. And we need to deliver this word so we can deliver people in their hearts and their minds. And we love you. And shalom. All is well. God bless.
Hey.